Hi, my name's Harvey Lowe, and welcome to another episode of Garage Studio Modelers. And I'm here with off camera.
Dave Forrest.
He's off camera.
I'm off camera.
Yeah,
just a disembodied voice.
Yeah, there's a dress code here, and he's not like his.
I didn't make it.
So we're here to talk about a follow up for our last episode.
But I am wearing pants.
Yeah.
So that's good.
That's true, eh?
That's
on
good.
all these things on Zoom calls, you don't really have to wear pants. But anyways, I am wearing pants.
But not here at Garage Studio.
No, because I got to walk to the neighborhood here, which is a nice neighborhood.
And there's a church across the street.
There's a church across the street, right?
Okay.
So we're here to talk about modulation, not talk about modulation, to do modulation. And so with that, I will literally start and modulate. And again, no editing, no cuts. So if I screw up, that's entirely my
It's
fault.
live, baby.
It's live, baby. So why don't I just start in and we can start the modulation. All right. Okay, so you can see that I've got a couple of products here. I talked about the tank, turret's white, hull's black. Gotta watch the last episode to understand why I did that. And all I'm doing today is modulating, and it's strictly black and white.
Hey, sorry, Harvey. Can you remind us what you primed with?
Oh yes, I didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
I actually primed the hull first black with Tamiya makes a flat black. I've never used Tamiya flat black out of the can as a primer, but I know some guys have. But I really like, and they're always out of stock, the 1500 Mr. Surfacer black.
Oh yeah, I love that. That's my go. Yeah, I love that.
That's go-to.
Yeah.
Although in Canada, I heard from my good friend and armor modeler Roy Hugh, thanks for the tip, Roy, that he uses Walmart's primer black and gray from Walmart. It's Krylon, I believe, and it says primer. You have to get it with primer. And
So
I found
is it like an automotive primer?
Yeah, I've used it.
Yeah, John Banana used to talk about he'd get like big cans
Big
for
cans of it.
like a few bucks or something at Walmart down in the U.S. as well.
Have you ever used the Warhammer stuff, Dave?
Yes. Yeah. That's nice stuff too. Now, I like priming out of the airbrush. That's why it gives me more control.
Out of the air.
It gives me more control, and I can get into those areas. I can focus on that, and I look at what you do out of a spray can, and I wonder, gee, am I overcomplicating? Am I overcooking this? Right?
Well, I build models now for clients and magazines, and I have timelines. And I find with a spray can, you're done.
Yeah.
The Tamiya stuff, the Tamiya fine white primer, it comes in white, it comes in mahogany brown, I think. It now comes in, no, I'm getting that confused with the Mr. Color.
That's the Mr. Color.
But it comes in the gray and the white. And
there's also a red oxide.
I think there is.
Yeah, there's a red oxide one as well.
The only really redeeming quality of the Tamiya primers out of the can is I find the paint really levels off. I keep looking off camera because Dave's there. But it levels off and it shrinks. It shrinks into the... Like this is done with Tamiya white, fine white primer right out of the can. Just a couple of miscoats. And it goes on thick, but then it almost shrinks.
Mm.
It's beautiful stuff, and it's almost like a semi-gloss. The Mr. Surfacer 1500 is equally good.
Yeah.
This one I also read out of the can. So you decant it.
Yeah, or I just use the bottle, like the little jars.
The jars.
And then I just 50-50 with lead thinner, right?
Right. So right now, we've used the spray can primer to prime the model. Again, this is Mr. Surfacer 1500. This is the Tamiya spray can. Again, why these colors? I find the pure white and black seem to work for me. I have used the Mr. Surfacer, it's a dark brown or something like that, on like Dunkel Gelb type models.
Do you want a pipette or something?
No, I got it.
You sure?
Yeah, I got it.
You want a stand for your airbrush?
It's... Oh, wow. I told you we're doing things on the fly.
I just remembered we have that.
Yes, so I can...
Easily accessible.
Put that there. Now, all I'm doing by eye is I'm mixing white Tamiya flat white, which is XF2, with their thinner. Can you use the other lacquers? You could. But in this case, it's a simple primer. I'm just using the regular thinner, which is
So
X28.
this is just an issue of convenience, and it doesn't
That's it.
stink as
Nah,
bad
it
as the
doesn't
lacquer
stink,
stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
Normally, I would spray with a mask. We're in a garage. That's why we call ourselves Garage Studio Modelers. And again, you know, you kind of find your eye will know the consistency of milk, 50-50. That's the white. The black, same thing.
It's actually an old carriage house.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But carriage house studio modelers doesn't sound as good as garage studio
Well, it
modelers.
sounds very like Waterloo, you know. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
So a bit of black, and we get that mixed up. And again, I just pour. Like you can use one of these things, but since I'm just doing it quickly, I'm just pouring just a bit by eye, just to get enough. Now I don't want this to be too thin, because too thin and it just kind of runs. It
Makes
runs
it harder.
Yeah, it runs all over the place. So you want to have. Let's see how this goes. And we'll turn on your trusty.
Second-hand compressor. Now, you may want to check the air pressure on that. I don't know what it's.
Oh, I did already.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Now I'm spraying at around 10 to 12
Okay.
psi. And I'm using my trusty
Sorry, just want to. Do you change
air
PSI?
pressure.
Yeah, like do you go like if it's
Yeah.
primer, you maybe go a little bit higher.
yeah.
If you're if you're
Yeah.
doing camo,
Good
it's a little bit lower.
Good point, Dave. Yes, I do. I do. I don't know what your setting is. So I go around 10 to 12 psi. I'm at the lower end of the psi rating when I do my models. I never spray at like 20.
No.
So, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's too strong.
If I'm doing fine camo patterns, I'm spraying really low, 6 to 8.
Very thin. And
Very
low.
thin. Very thin. Maybe we should do an episode on spraying cam. I'm going very thin on the paint, mostly thinner. I'm close to the surface. I'm a very low PSI. And I tend to spray on less humid days. That's why I have a moisture trap always fitted to this Awada. This is an Awada HPB Plus. I love Awada airbrushes. These are my go-to. I've got a couple of these. I've even got a custom micron that I use for fine spraying. This one is a go-to. I think, what is this, a 0.3?
No, smaller than that.
Smaller than that,
It's
eh?
Point
You're
0.18.
right.
I think it's 0.18.
I think it is a 0.18, yeah. So you can, now what I do is I just spray on my hand to see what this pressure is, and that's about right, okay? So now, let's start. So let's start with the hull. Oh, by the way, the wheels. This thing comes with 10 road wheels. I'm a modeler that believes don't work on a model in any type of way, paint-wise, if you're not going to see it. So in other words, I'm not modulating these wheels. Do you modulate these wheels, or do you? Do you modulate wheels?
I do a bit. But they largely get covered up
They
by
covered-
mud,
yeah.
right? Like, yeah.
So I don't. So, but there's.
But I do pay a little attention to them.
Yeah, I usually do it. We haven't even talked about this. I do it post modulation. I add highlights there with oils and other things to bring out the highlights at the center of the road wheel. But I don't normally like do it at this stage.
So you just painted like the base color and that's it.
Because I've seen a lot of, with respect, some guys that do all that modulation and then put the coat of paint on and they weather it and it's gone.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
It's totally gone.
you'll know it's there.
Is that modeler's OCD? Because they know it's there, like putting all that detail in the
Yes,
fuselage of a bomber and you don't see it?
Exactly.
Right?
I certainly suffer from that.
Yeah. By the way, always use the bottom to kind of test things,
That's a great point.
right? Just kind of, because you're not really going to see it, so you're just testing, make sure you got the right. So you can see that it's not bad. Now, for black basing, black is your base. Now, the key thing here is, I'm going to try to keep it the camera in the light. You're not going in the shadow areas, so you're only doing right the center sections of these grills. Actually, the mixture is nice, and you want to overemphasize it. I learned that from you, Dave. You overemphasize things because it's easier to bring it down than to lose it, right? So it's not going to look great. Now you see these areas in the middle. It's like all you're doing is you can go up close and do these tight patterns. You can squiggle it. See, all you're doing is
Just to give it some variety.
Yeah. And it can be messy. You're not top of this little vent or whatever it's called. You're not being particular, and you can even do little fine lines like this. But don't worry if there's a splatter there. It actually adds, I think it adds to the effect. That's all you do. See how fast it is? You don't have to do these little hinges separately. You're just going in really fine, right? You don't really need to do this turret ring because you can't see it. Also, at the tops of these fuel caps, just get them
Yeah, because they would stand up. Yeah.
They'd stand out.
Yeah.
Right? These you can kind of, if you want to do these.
So really, you're using. So if we contrast how I would approach it versus what you're doing here.
Yeah.
So basically, what you're doing is you're kind of creating the highlight. What I would do with a highlight color, you're doing with the white.
Yes.
Effectively, because that's what I do. I would spray the top of the raised, the fuel caps, the raised visors, whatever was proud of the.
Now look at this. I'm doing squiggles now.
Like you're doing graffiti.
Kind of like graffiti. There's my name. Look. And you're trying to keep away from these engraved panels, so you're giving more depth to the center of it, right? See that little.
Sort of similar technique to what how I used to paint aircraft.
How would you?
Like you would paint the light, like the center of the panel, lighter color.
Yes.
And then post shade the panel lines, or try and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in fact, you are doing that. Like if you did it right and you really had contrast here, you don't need to post shade. You're relying on a thin coat and a bit of right, and you stop.
Yeah.
You find that if you've lost this work, then you do need some more post shading. And
well, that's the nice thing about this is you can always go back and correct with that technique, right?
Yeah, and it's okay if you have buildup in some areas. And I'm doing this fairly quick, but you can see again, I'm not going in these these highlights. Just highlight the heck out of them, right? I really highlight the heck out of them, right? And then, now, by the way, I made this, I forgot to mention, I scratch built this stowage bin. Now, you don't have to do this center section because it's going to be filled with stuff. But you can do the supports. See, you can do the supports. Again, I don't do a lot of the bottom here because it's going to be filled with mud. So I literally
But your earlier point about it being a good place to practice is, I think, very true.
Yeah, see? You can practice close up.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the paint building up because for a modulated vehicle, that's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, just to re-emphasize that, I think using the underside of the model to perfect a technique, if you're not sure about it or want to practice, is a great.
Especially weathering, Dave.
Yeah.
You do that, right? You test because weathering, right? We'll talk about that, but you want to have almost complementary colors in your mud to some degree. Would you say?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's got to kind of jive together.
It's got to jive together. Now the other thing with this is for these details, light guards, you can just kind of go further away and just kind of highlight it. See?
Like a figure.
Like a figure. Highlight it. You don't have to go in like that. So you got many ways that you can do that. Going close, going real close. Then you can use these. You can do this spray masking. I call these splatter masks. What do you call these? I don't know what you call these. But then
splatter mask.
Splatter mask. They do have a different effect. And if you go here,
it's finer, more predictable.
It's finer.
Now you're holding that, and you're just holding that like maybe like a quarter of an inch away from the, an eighth of an inch.
If you go higher up, it's a little more. It's a little too subtle.
A little too diffused.
You got to go almost like 3 millimeters, 3 millimeters.
But you wouldn't put it right up against it.
No.
Right? So just so you have that.
Like if I go
like
heavy, look.
Effect.
Yeah, if I go heavy, look, it's really heavy.
Yeah.
But again, I think for this, it doesn't matter because you're going to be covering it with, and you can combine it. Right? You can combine these things. See?
That looks great.
And you're adding just random. All you're doing is random.
And this really just talks to the whole concept of layering your effects.
Yep.
Building it up.
Building it up.
Doing different things.
Yep. And then this time I'm going to kind of feather it. It's entirely
soften it,
soften a bit. It's now normally I would be a little more careful in doing this if I was doing it for, you know, for an entry in a show or something. Not to say that I wouldn't enter this, but this part is just giving the base some depth. So there's the side. And now when you do these masks, look, you get paint on your mat, so you got to make sure that you wipe it off. But they build up on the mask. So you got to continually dampen them because they do get quite wet.
Mm. Is that a paper mask or is that
this is paper.
That's paper.
This is paper. Now you're not going to see this. Oh, I ran out of paint. You're not going to see this on the bottom of the stowage bin because there'll be packs on it. But
again, a good opportunity to practice.
See,
Yeah.
higher up, and then
It's a nice effect.
it does.
Sure, it's a nice effect.
We got to wash our mat later. Right? See that?
Yeah.
Little freehand you want. Use the tow hooks. I better not get your mat.
No, that's okay. Figure that out.
You also have the larger ones here. Now, I don't know if I'd do the big ones because they're fairly big, but I would choose some smaller ones to. Pretty simple, eh?
Yeah. And you're just kind of randomly go prescribed method. You're just kind of building it up as whatever looks right.
Yeah, except I'm avoiding the shadow areas.
Yeah.
I'm not going in those shadow areas. I'm just kind of going around in the highlights.
It's amazing. In just a few minutes we've been doing this, the level of interest just in doing this is increased significantly.
Totally. The darker areas in the recess, you can go further out. Kind of vary your brush, move it in and out, see? And you're just catching the highlights, like you say with figure guys. Okay. And we'll just, look at this, I just did the whole thing already. And then you do your Japanese modeling, look at that, the modeled effects. And perhaps do a pattern here. Now, one of the things that you can do is I'm using white, but I have used different colors. In
like
this.
light colors, like a deck tan or a buff or
So I'm working on a Facebook group build, and it's a Blenheim, and it's got the REF 2 scheme. I'm not an expert in REF, but I'm doing this modulation on the external dark earth green, and I'm establishing the pattern with this modulation so that the green I would be using yellows and some sort of complementary color contrasting,
and that's on black base as well.
Yeah, over a black base.
Interesting.
And then I'm using for the browns, I'm using light browns, dark browns, and then you do the camo on top.
We should do an episode on aircraft as well, the same type of thing, right? Because that would be of interest. I would love to see that.
We should. Now, do you do in here? Do you do in here?
I do, yeah, a bit.
Yeah, a bit.
I know, but you're right. It gets covered.
It does get covered.
And it depends on if there's anything that's covering it, right? If there's a cladding or armor skirts or something on it, then it kind of depends.
See, I glued these wheels on you. So
my natural tendency would be to do it, but you're right. If it's not, sometimes to take a shortcut, nobody's going to see it.
You don't see it.
Right?
Yeah, even back here, there's all the kick-up mud. You don't see it. So, believe it or not, I think I'm done.
That was quick.
Right?
That took, what, 10 minutes?
10 minutes. Right, let's add a bit more. I want a bit more of these effects here. I don't know what's... Over the grills.
Where'd you pick up the mask? Just curious.
Any really good hobby store in Toronto. We have Sunward, we have Wheels and Wings, we have Carefree, Panda Hobbies. Geez, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. Panther. There's a whole bunch of places in Toronto. Daily Hobbies. Did I miss any? I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't know if I'd even do the front because it's kind of covered in mud, but...
Yeah, I think you're right.
Done.
Yeah.
Easy. Did you say?
Yeah, that's great. So that's
black basing.
That's black basing. That gets you your.
Now we're gonna do. Just let me do these frames. Right, frames, all the way frames.
Look at that.
Okay, easy. So that's it, and then now we'll cut and we'll move to the turret, which will be the opposite, black and white
Very
modulation.
Good.
Okay?
Very
Good. Okay, now we're back on the turret, and the turret is white, and the paint I have is right here, black. And this one is Tamiya Flat Black XF1 in my trusty Iwata brush. Now, unlike the black basing, I'm just going to bring this back a sec, where I did white pattern over a dark base. This time I'm only, and that was focusing on the highlights. Now I'm just going to focus on the dark areas.
So this is more traditional
Yep.
post shading.
Yep.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could. It's on a white base, so. Right. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Normally, though, I would use a fairly small size needle so that you can kind of get in these fine areas.
Which is what you're doing there.
This is what I'm doing, yeah.
And you're spraying at the same air pressure as you were
Yes,
with
sir.
the white?
Yes, sir. And again, like, you're going in really close. Do you want to do the rivet? You could. Right on the base of the antenna. Around the ammo box. Maybe even in the bottom part of the stowage bin. Turret lines. I'm doing it fairly quick. The paint is not necessarily thin, but it's got some viscosity to it so that it's covering. You don't have to do too many passes at it. You know, I'm going around the turret, see? Mm-hmm. And again, you're focusing only on the shadows. You're not focusing on the highlights that I did before. Now, by the way, I did paint this black before, and then I just sprayed it with the Tamiya fine spray primer right out of the can, because you can see the black leaves the darkness inside the smoke dischargers,
right.
You see? So I did do it black and then just sprayed it, and so I'm now coming back with the black. Do you do it this way, Dave?
No. No, I always do the black.
Is that right?
Black or dark brown.
Is that right?
Color, yeah.
You don't do this way?
No.
Oh. Well.
I just think it's, and my reasoning is that I just think it's easier to get at the highlights than it is the shadows. Right?
Very true, because you got to have a little more control with your airbrush this way. You're right. Right?
But it's funny though, because when I was, before all I was doing, this was years ago when I was doing aircraft, I would do what you're doing. Like
really?
I would prime it in the gray and then post shade it. The gray or the white and post shade it and do exactly that on aircraft. Yeah.
Would you still do it that way on aircraft?
No, I do black base.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from you guys what you guys prefer.
No, I'm not an expert.
I'm sure you are. Your stuff stands the ground.
But that's what I would do. I just think it's easier to blast, like to mask coat the shadows. Because you can always, more easily get at the highlights with a fine airbrush than you can't get into the shadows.
You're right, because right now, I'm doing the dark and it's getting on pretty thick, but I like it.
But it's an interesting effect though.
Right? And again, we'll come back to doing the OD where you're going to be going very light on those colors. Again, I'm having my little sickness here and doing things that probably won't be seen, but that's okay.
We all do that.
Yeah. Right, I'm almost done. Now, I'm just trying to stay away from the highlights. That's all I'm doing. But see, you do have to get in there with a fine brush. And don't worry, you can always come back to these dark areas. Don't worry if there's overspray.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
That's right. You can always come back with, whether it's a darker, like the black, or like a darker shade of the olive drab, right?
Yeah. And also don't forget that if you're using this technique, you don't want to lay the paint too thick because you're just going to cover all your work. I think I did it all in, 10 minutes?
Less than that's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
This is a metal barrel, so I do the end where it gets a little bit from the gun blast. You might see it. I don't know yet. Let's see. Now you see, I'm hitting some of these rivet areas. I'm not doing I'm just doing the whole area, because when you apply the highlights later with an oil or dry brushing, that'll bring out the... Doesn't matter.
Too small otherwise.
Too small. Now, if you know this kit, I didn't add all the ammo boxes because in the initial episodes I mentioned that this particular tank had this turret basket applied, and it's hard to tell whether these were installed on the kit as per the Tamiya instructions tell you to. So it depends what vehicle you're doing. And again...
But you're going to jam stowage.
I'm jamming stowage, yeah.
But you're doing it after the fact.
After the fact, that's correct. And I am not an expert on Vietnam armor. It's not my comfort level, but a model's a model you want to build. These are the techniques that are common in the model. I'm not going to get into what's, accurate or not accurate on a Sheridan. Less so.
So this is more of the technique, right?
These are all techniques. Yeah, these are all techniques. And you notice that I'm going over some of the darker areas with another.
It's an interesting subject. And especially now, like the turret is really... there's a lot going on there, and now you can start to really see it and appreciate it with some of the shading here, right?
Yep. Now you could, as I said before, go over with different colors, different vibrant colors, but that becomes an artistic eye thing, because if you do add, let's say you decide to add pinks and oranges and yellows, and you layer on your OD, it will change.
Yeah.
The top coat, it will, and so I don't do a lot of that. But maybe in the next episode we could try a bit and see what the top looks like when we add. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. And I think I'm done. So that was what, another...
That was easy.
I'm like you. I can
just
quick. So now you see the top and the bottom.
I kind of like, now it's starting to come together, right? I mean, there's still a difference.
Yep.
But less so.
Now we're gonna. So basically, I finished the modulation. I hope you guys got something out of it. There's many different ways to do it, just as a cap. This is black basing technique, white on black, staying on the highlighted areas, and this one's what I call the more traditional modulation, which is black on white, focusing on the recessed and darker areas with black paint. So it gives you a different perspective in two ways that you can do modulation. And so we'll end it here, and in the next episode we'll talk about the actual camouflage color OD greens.